Welcome to the open mic, where bold stories spark big conversations.
Great to be here.
Okay, I have to admit, when I first looked at the stack of documents you brought in for today's deep dive, I honestly thought I was looking at a script for a season of The Crown that just got rejected for being, a little too unrealistic.
It really does sound like fiction, doesn't it?
Completely. We've got secret dinners at the palace, we've got Russian models, government raids, these cryptic emails, and it all seems to be centered around one very specific night.
That's the thing. If you wrote this in a novel, an editor would probably tell you to dial it back a bit. But this is all very, very real. And you're absolutely right. This entire web of scandal that we are going to unravel today, it all pivots around a single evening, September 27th, 2010.
All right, so take me back there. I want you to set the scene for me, for all of us. Where are we? What does it feel like?
Okay, so picture it. It's London in late September. The air is getting that crisp feeling, when the season is just about to turn.
Yeah, the nights are drawing in.
Exactly. The leaves in St. James's Park are just starting to get that golden brown edge. It's a Monday night. Now, if you're a tourist standing outside the gates of Buckingham Palace, clutching your camera, it would just look like it always does. Imposing, quiet, impenetrable.
And the flag isn't flying.
Good point. The royal standard isn't flying, which is the signal to the world that the Queen isn't in residence. She's up in Scotland at Balmoral on her annual break.
So basically the parents are out of town.
That is the perfect way to put it. The house should be empty. The palace is technically in quiet mode. You'd imagine most of the lights are off in the staterooms. But inside Prince Andrew's private apartments, well, it is anything but quiet.
A dinner party is happening.
A dinner party is happening.
Yeah.
And if you could be a fly on the wall, if you could just peek through that keyhole, the group of people sitting around that table would absolutely baffle you.
So who are we talking about here? Because my idea of a royal dinner is, stuffy diplomats and distant cousins.
Usually you'd be right, but this is different. At the head of the table, of course, you've got Prince Andrew, the Duke of York. That's the expected part. But sitting near him, as a guest of honor, you have Jeffrey Epstein.
And this is the point we really, really need to hammer home. The timeline, because I think sometimes people hear Epstein and Andrew and their minds go to the 90s, before anyone really knew what Epstein was about.
No. And this is probably the single most crucial piece of context for everything we're about to discuss. This is September 2010. Jeffrey Epstein is not some mysterious financier with a bit of a reputation at this point.
He's a criminal.
He is a convicted sex offender. He has already completed an 18-month prison sentence in Florida.
For soliciting a minor.
For soliciting a minor for prostitution. He is on the sex offender registry. His mugshot has been in newspapers all over the world. This is not a secret.
So there is absolutely no "I didn't know" defense here.
Oh, yeah.
There's no plausible deniability for Andrew.
None. Zero. Andrew knows exactly who is sitting at his table. He knows he is breaking bread with a man who was, just a short time before this, imprisoned for abusing a child. And it gets weirder.
Okay.
Sitting nearby, there's a Russian woman who's identified in the U.S. Department of Justice files only as Vera. And then, squeezed in at the very, very last minute, a young woman from Romania.
And this Romanian model, she is the key to the report we're looking at today. The Palace Files. Epstein, Andrew, and the Romanian model.
That's the one. We are going to try and reconstruct this entire night and its aftermath using emails and visitor logs that have only just been released. And the reason this deep dive is so important isn't just for the historical gossip, even though the gossip itself is explosive.
Right.
It's because this one dinner has triggered a massive, massive chain reaction that is, right now, as we speak, threatening to bring down some of the most senior political figures in the United Kingdom.
I saw some of the headlines you sent over.
Yeah.
Police raids. We're talking about actual police raids.
We're not talking about a strongly worded letter from a committee. We are talking about the Metropolitan Police raiding the homes of a former cabinet minister, a lord. We're talking about very serious allegations of misconduct in public office, even potential treason.
This is unbelievable.
It's the intersection of a global sex trafficking network, royalty, and the highest echelons of the British state. And it all comes back to this one dinner.
Okay, I am strapped in. So let's go back to the dinner itself. You mentioned this Romanian woman was a last-minute addition. How last minute are we talking about?
This is one of my favorite details in the documents because it just speaks volumes about the sheer arrogance, the audacity of the people involved. The timestamp on the email is 6:41 p.m.
Wait, 6:41 p.m. on the night of the dinner.
On the night of the dinner.
So dinner's probably at what, 8 o'clock?
Maybe 7.3, 8.0000, exactly.
Yeah.
So the chefs are already prepping the food, the table is set, the wine has been brought up from the cellar. And at that moment, Jeffrey Epstein casually pulls out his device and shoots off an email to the Queen's son.
And what does it say?
It's 3 words. Add one more.
Just. Add one more. Not, so sorry for the short notice, but would it be possible?
No niceties, no apologies. It's an instruction. It's like he's ordering a side of fries at a diner.
Yeah.
There's a complete lack of deference.
The power dynamic there is fascinating.
It's inverted, isn't it? And look at how he describes her. He doesn't say, I'm bringing a brilliant economist or a promising artist or even just, a colleague.
What does he write?
He writes, Romanian, very cute.
Wow. Very cute. That's the credential. That's our entry pass to get into Buckingham Palace.
That is the security clearance. Cute. He is boiling this human being down to her nationality and her physical appearance. That's the entirety of her value in his eyes, and it's all he thinks the prince needs to know.
So what does Prince Andrew say? Does he say, Jeff, look, it's a bit late for that. We have security protocols. You know how it is. Does he even ask for her last name?
He asks for nothing. No last name, no date of birth for a security check, nothing. He replies almost instantly.
Let me guess.
No problem.
No problem. I want to pause on that for a second, because anyone who's been to London has seen the guards. You see the guys with the big fuzzy hats and the assault rifles. You can't just wander into Buckingham Palace.
Of course not.
So how does a cute Romanian, as he puts it, get past those gates at 7 p.m. with less than an hour's notice?
That is the multi-million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's the security breach at the heart of this that has some really terrifying implications for national security. Normally, any guest, even for a minor event, has to have their name submitted at least 24 or sometimes 48 hours in advance.
And they run a check on them.
A thorough check. The names are run through a database by the Royalty and Specialist Protection Branch of the police, known as RSP. They check for criminal records, terror threats, outstanding warrants, even undesirable press connections.
You think that associate of a known convicted sex offender would, raise a pretty big red flag on some screen somewhere.
You would hope so. But Andrew's email, that simple no problem, it suggests he has the power to just override that entire system. He can just wave someone through. His word is enough.
The prince's guest.
Exactly. And the server material we're looking at notes something else that's really disturbing here. An inside source revealed that Andrew promised Epstein lots of privacy for this specific visit.
Lots of privacy.
I see.
That sounds conspiratorial. It doesn't sound like, let's have a normal dinner.
It implies evasion, doesn't it?
Mm.
If you're having a legitimate business meeting or just catching up with a friend, you don't need privacy from the palace's own security and staff. You might want privacy from the paparazzi outside the gates, sure, but asking for privacy inside the walls suggests you don't want a paper trail. You don't want the footmen talking. You don't want the logs to be accurate.
But there is a paper trail, or at least part of one. We have these emails.
We have the emails now, years and years later, and only because of legal discovery processes in the United States. But you have to put yourself in their shoes at the time. They thought they were completely invisible. They thought the ancient stone walls of the palace were thick enough to keep the real world out.
So let's talk about the logistics of that night. She didn't just appear at the gates. She had to get there. Where did she come from?
And this is where the geography of the entire scandal starts to get mapped out. The staging point for the evening, as the documents call it, was a mews house in Belgravia.
One of those little cobblestone side streets.
Exactly. Very exclusive, very private. And whose house was it? It was the home of Ghislaine Maxwell.
Of course. You can't seem to tell the story without her name popping up. She's the linchpin.
She is the constant. She's the hub that connects all these spokes. And we have to be clear, that specific house in Belgravia is infamous. It's not just any old address. That is the exact same location where Virginia Giuffre, who is probably Epstein's most well-known accuser, alleged that she was trafficked to have sex with Prince Andrew back in 2001. A claim Andrew has always vehemently denied.
So almost a full decade later, the very same house is allegedly being used for essentially the same purpose, as a home base to move women to Andrew.
That is the pattern that the evidence suggests. It points to a well-oiled machine, a pipeline. The Belgravia house acts as the depot. The women are brought there, maybe they're prepped there, and then they're dispatched to the client. And in this case, the client is at Buckingham Palace.
So the Romanian model is driven from Maxwell's home directly to the palace gates.
Correct. She's chauffeured from one locus of power to another.
It's chilling to think about that car ride. What must have been going through her head? Was she excited? Was she nervous, scared?
We can only speculate, but probably a mix of all of those things. We do know from the emails that come later that she was, at least in part, completely dazzled by the experience. But let's look at the morning after. The sun comes up over London on September 28th. What happens next?
Epstein emails Andrew again.
He does. He writes, "Great fun, more later."
Short and to the point. Great fun.
Very punchy, very casual. And Andrew's response. Now, remember, this is the Prince of the Realm, the Duke of York, responding to a convicted sex offender about the night they just spent together. He writes back 2 words.
Yes, please.
Yes, please, with an exclamation point.
The exclamation point really adds something, doesn't it? It's not a polite thank you, that was lovely. It's eager.
The tone is undeniably enthusiastic. It's gushing. There's no sense of distance, no formality. It is a tone of deep familiarity and shared experience. You do not write "yes, please" to someone you are merely tolerating or keeping at arm's length for, say, diplomatic reasons.
No, it suggests a real shared enjoyment of whatever transpired the night before.
And a desire for it to happen again. It completely shatters the narrative that was later put out there that Andrew was perhaps just too polite to cut ties or was in the process of ending the friendship. This wasn't politeness. This was great fun. He was actively inviting him back for a sequel.
Okay, let's pivot for a moment. We've set the scene at the palace, which is mind-boggling in itself. But I want to talk more about this add-on, the Romanian model. Because so often in these stories, the women are just treated as names on a list or objects in a room. But she's a person. Who was she?
That's such a great point, and it's so important. The media, for good reason, hasn't named her to protect her privacy. But the documents do allow us to build a profile that is, well, it's really heartbreaking when you start to peel back the layers.
So where was she from?
She was a student in Bucharest, in Romania, and she first enters Epstein's orbit in 2008.
2008, that year just keeps coming up again and again.
It's the year the whole house of cards should have collapsed. It's the year Epstein goes to jail in Florida. So, just try to imagine this for a second. At the very same time he is facing prison for soliciting a minor, he is simultaneously in the process of recruiting a young, vulnerable student from Eastern Europe. He's keeping his supply chain active even as the law is closing in on him.
It's just shameless. And this wasn't just a casual acquaintance. There was a financial element to their relationship, right?
A very significant financial component. The emails show a clear pattern of creating dependence. She visited him at his home in Florida. She visited him in Paris. And the record strongly suggests that Epstein was paying for her rent.
So he's providing her housing.
Yes. But here's a detail from the files that really stuck out to me. He also paid her dental bills.
Dental bills. That's oddly specific and kind of intrusive almost.
It is incredibly specific, and it is a classic hallmark of grooming and coercive control. It goes beyond just giving someone money. It's about body modification. It's a statement. I will fix your smile. I will literally change your face. It creates a debt that feels impossible to repay with just money. You feel like you owe him the very smile on your face. It makes the victim feel like they are, in a very real sense, a creation of their abuser.
Oh, that is dark. It's like he's molding her, sculpting her.
He is. And so she moves to the UK in May of 2010, just a few months before this dinner at the palace.
And we have correspondence between them about the dinner itself. And this is where we really start to see what the sources are calling a pattern of control.
Okay.
How did she react after going to the palace?
Well, initially she reacted like any normal young person would. She was completely overwhelmed. She wrote to Epstein and thanked him profusely. She called it a once-in-a-lifetime experience, which, I mean, objectively it is. Having dinner at Buckingham Palace is the stuff of fairy tales.
But Epstein, he doesn't just say you're welcome, does he? He uses it. He turns it into some kind of twisted lesson.
This is where the details get, frankly, quite visceral and creepy. He responds to her genuine gratitude by immediately reminding her of her insecurity. He points out that she almost backed out of going.
Why?
Because she didn't like the jeans she was wearing.
She was worried about her jeans for a dinner with a prince. I mean, that sounds like the most normal, relatable reaction for a young person in that situation. Oh my God, I'm underdressed.
It's a completely human moment, isn't it? But listen to how Epstein reassures her. He writes to her, "You were perfect and Andrew got beautiful." Okay, so far so good. Standard validation. But then he adds this line. He says, "No man looks at your clothes, they see through them."
No man looks at your clothes, they see through them.
Just let that sink in for a second.
That actually makes my skin crawl. It's one of the most repulsive things I've ever heard.
It is predatory X-ray vision. He is explicitly telling this young woman that her value in that room, that historic, powerful room, was not her conversation, not her intellect, not her personality. It was her body beneath her clothes. He's telling her that these powerful men, and he's including the prince in this, were mentally undressing her the entire time.
It's not just validating her, it's validating her objectification. It strips her of every ounce of agency and reduces her to pure anatomy.
And it suggests he's speaking for Andrew, too. That line, Andrew thought beautiful. He's positioning himself as the one who reports back on the prince's gaze, on his approval.
He's the broker.
He's the broker. He holds the keys to the kingdom. I can get you in the door, and I can tell you what the prince thinks of you. So if you want the prince to keep thinking you're beautiful, you have to listen to me.
And the control didn't stop at these creepy compliments. He started making demands.
Oh, absolutely. He immediately demanded she write to him and tell him how much she missed him. It's that classic textbook grooming technique. You must enforce emotional reliance. You have to perform affection and gratitude to keep the rewards coming.
And then the tone shifts again. We have another email from October 2010, so about a month after the dinner. It's not so nice anymore.
No, the mask slips. The tone goes from "you were perfect" to pure anger. Apparently, in his view, she wasn't following his advice closely enough. He completely lambasts her. He writes, and I'm quoting here, "I have been there for you for over 2 years. You have followed your own path in contrast to my strong suggestions."
My strong suggestions, which is just a code word for his orders.
It's a command. And then the threat drops. He writes, "Like our night at the palace, it was easy, you were perfect, and no one cared about your clothes." He brings it right back to that night, holding it up as the prize. And then he says, "I will help you after, and only after you start helping yourself."
After and only after. So it's completely conditional. Do exactly what I say, or the rent, the dental bills, the palace dinners. It all stops.
It's a leash. He's giving it a sharp yank. The message is clear. I made you. I can unmake you.
Now, you also mentioned he helped her with her career. It wasn't just about paying bills. It was about opening doors to jobs.
Yes, and this is where we introduce another character to our cast who really illustrates just how deep and how interconnected this network was. Epstein helped land her a job via a British multimillionaire businessman named Lyndon Lee.
Lyndon Leah, okay. And how did Epstein pitch her to him? Did he use the Romanian very cute line again?
No, and this is what's so fascinating. The chameleon changes his colors depending on the audience. To Prince Andrew, the sexual target, she's very cute. But to Lyndon Lee, the legitimate businessman, Epstein writes that she is a good friend, former high fashion model, business school degree, anxious to start a real job.
Suddenly she has a resume. She has a business degree.
Yeah.
He knows exactly who he's talking to.
He tailors the pitch perfectly to the target. He even adds, "I'm sure she will excel."
And did she get the job?
She did. Lyndon Leah arranged a paid internship for her at a company in London. Now, here is the irony that the source material highlights, and it is a staggering one. Lyndon Leah is a prominent figure who helps lead an anti-trafficking charity.
You have to be kidding me.
I wish I were. He is actively involved in philanthropic anti-trafficking efforts, yet he was taking job referrals for a young Eastern European woman from Jeffrey Epstein, a convicted child sex offender. Now, we must be absolutely clear. The report states that Lyndon Lee did not provide a comment, so we don't know what he knew or didn't know about the full scope of Epstein's behavior at that specific time, even though the conviction was a matter of public record. But the juxtaposition is... it's just stark.
It's breathtaking. It just shows how this entire network operated in plain sight, using the language of legitimacy internships, business degrees to cover its tracks.
Exactly.
And what about the woman herself? Where's she now? And is she officially considered a victim in all this?
That is a very complex and sensitive question. The source material states that it remains legally unclear if she is a victim of sexual abuse. She did not respond to any inquiries from the Mail on Sunday who broke this story. She has, it seems, chosen silence. We know Epstein groomed countless women. We know he abused many. But in the public record regarding this specific individual, her status remains ambiguous.
Which is her absolute right, of course. But her presence at that dinner, it acts as the catalyst for all these other questions we're asking now. She is the anomaly in the security log that forces everyone to look closer.
Precisely. If it had just been Epstein and the Russian woman, maybe it wouldn't have raised the same flags. But the last-minute add-on, the cute girl. She is the loose thread that, when pulled, unravels the entire sweater.
Which leads us perfectly into the royal fallout and the security implications. Because, let's be blunt, the Queen was at Balmoral, but Buckingham Palace is not an Airbnb. You don't just get to invite whoever you want over because the owner's away.
No. And that is the central question that is deeply bothering security experts and royal authors alike. How on earth were these guests admitted, especially a known, registered sex offender?
We talked about the visitor logs. Are these actual physical books, or are we talking about digital file?
It's a combination of both. The palace maintains very strict logs. Every single person who enters for an official or private visit is supposed to be recorded, their name, the time they enter, the time they leave, the purpose of their visit. This is what has led to such loud calls for a full internal investigation. Did they simply bypass the logs? Or are their names sitting in a dusty ledger or a server file somewhere? If those logs exist, they are concrete proof of who was there and when.
The royal author Andrew Lowney has a very strong take on this.
He does. Lowney is on record suggesting there are strong grounds for the Metropolitan Police to reopen their entire investigation into Andrew. His argument is based on the sheer volume of stories. It's not just one isolated incident anymore. We have a pattern of stories emerging about women being taken to see Andrew at royal residences. Lowney's point is that the palace needs to investigate its own security failures. Was the law itself broken regarding security protocols? If you knowingly sneak a prohibited or dangerous person into a royal residence, is that a breach of the Official Secrets Act? Is it a dereliction of duty?
It seems like a fundamental failure of their primary job. If the police are there to protect the institution of the monarchy, then knowingly letting a man who preys on children into the central symbol of that monarchy seems like the absolute opposite of protection.
You're exactly right. They ended up protecting the prince's privacy, but in doing so, they failed to protect the institution's integrity.
And the legal pressure isn't just coming from calls for the palace to investigate itself. It's coming from outside, too.
The Met Police are facing enormous public pressure to launch a full criminal investigation into Prince Andrew based specifically on these palace files. But there is also a second police force that has now been drawn into this web, the Thames Valley Police.
Thames Valley. Now, why them? What's the difference?
It all comes down to geography. The Metropolitan Police's jurisdiction is London, so they cover Buckingham Palace. The Thames Valley Police's jurisdiction covers the area around Windsor, and they are reviewing a separate but related allegation.
And what is that allegation?
This involves a claim from a different woman who alleges that Jeffrey Epstein sent her to the UK with the specific purpose of having sex with Prince Andrew at Royal Lodge.
And Royal Lodge is his home in Windsor Park.
Correct. It was his sprawling 30-room home on the Queen's estate. And the significance here is all about the location. This is the very first time an Epstein victim has formally claimed a sexual encounter took place inside a royal residence. The previous allegations from Virginia Giuffre had focused on Ghislaine Maxwell's house in London, or Epstein's private properties in New York, or his island. This new claim brings the alleged act directly into the Queen's home, into the heart of the royal estate.
That raises the stakes immeasurably. If a crime is alleged to have been committed on royal grounds, the implications for the monarchy are far, far more severe than if it happens in a private home in Belgravia.
It completely pierces that bubble of symbolic immunity. It suggests that the royal household itself was used as a venue for these alleged crimes. It potentially turns the royal estate into a crime scene.
This is incredibly heavy. But we're not done, are we? Because this web stretches beyond the royal family. It goes right into the heart of the British political establishment. Which brings us to the political firestorm and Peter Mandelson.
And this is the moment in the story where it explodes from being a royal scandal into a full-blown constitutional crisis. We have to talk about Lord Mandelson.
For our listeners, especially those outside the UK who might not be as familiar with him, who is this guy? Is he just another politician?
Oh, no. Calling Peter Mandelson just another politician is like calling Steve Jobs just a computer guy. Mandelson is, in many ways, one of the primary architects of modern Britain. He was the strategic genius who created New Labour alongside Tony Blair and Gordon Brown. He was the power behind the throne for over a decade. He's brilliant, incredibly connected, and famously or infamously known as the Prince of Darkness for his unmatched ability to manipulate the media and the machinery of politics.
Okay, so a genuine titan of politics. And now this titan is the subject of police raids.
Yes, the source material describes a scene that honestly feels like it's from a Jason Bourne movie. Metropolitan Police detectives raided Peter Mandelson's two homes, one of which is a 12 million property in a very posh part of London. This is not a polite knock on the door asking for a quick chat. This was a formal raid.
And someone else showed up during the raid.
Yes, which tells you how serious this is. A top corporate financial crime lawyer, a King's Counsel named Adrian Derbyshire, visited Mandelson's home for 90 minutes while the police were there. When you have a KC who specializes in high-level financial crime showing up at your house during a police raid, it is a sign that you are in very, very deep trouble.
So what are they probing? What is the specific allegation?
The probe is officially looking into allegations of misconduct in public office.
Can you define that for us? Because misconduct in public office can sound a bit like an HR violation. Oh, you use the office copier for personal document.
I wish it were that small. No, in British common law, misconduct in public office is an extremely serious criminal offense. It carries a maximum potential sentence of life imprisonment.
Life imprisonment?
Yes. To be found guilty, you have to have willfully neglected your duty or misconducted yourself to such an extreme degree that it amounts to a fundamental abuse of the public's trust. The bar for prosecution is very high. You have to have really, really messed up.
And former Prime Minister Gordon Brown, who was Mandelson's boss and colleague for years, has come out swinging on this.
Gordon Brown did not mince his words at all. He went on the record and stated that Mandelson's emails apparently show he leaked confidential government plans directly to Jeffrey Epstein.
Leaking government plans to Jeffrey Epstein. A private citizen. A criminal.
That is precisely the accusation. Brown described the act as a potential crime. He went even further and called it a betrayal of everything we stand for as a country. When a former prime minister uses the word betrayal to describe a former senior cabinet colleague, the bridges aren't just burned, they've been nuked from orbit.
But why? Why would Jeffrey Epstein want British government plans? What's in it for him?
Information is the ultimate currency, especially for a financier like Epstein. Knowing what a government is planning to do before anyone else, economically, diplomatically, regarding tax policy, is incredibly valuable. It allows you to position your investments, to make trades, to leverage influence with other powerful people. It gives you an insurmountable edge over the market.
And there's an even darker layer to this information trading. The source material mentions MI6.
And this is where we move firmly into James Bond territory. This is the national security angle. The report reveals claims that MI6, which is Britain's foreign intelligence service, was told years ago that Peter Mandelson himself could be a risk to UK security.
A risk to national security? Why?
Because of his alleged connections to Russian intelligence.
Whoa! Hang on. Russian intelligence?
That is what the source material claims. Connections to Russian intelligence. Now, if you combine that explosive claim with the separate allegation of leaking government secrets to Jeffrey Epstein, you have a potential scenario where a senior British politician is acting as a conduit, passing sensitive state information to a criminal network that may itself have ties to foreign adversaries.
And let's connect the dots here, just to be clear. At that dinner at Buckingham Palace, the dinner that started all this, we had Prince Andrew, we had Jeffrey Epstein, and we had a Russian model.
The connections are circumstantial, of course, but the constellation of data points is, to put it mildly, extremely alarming. If Epstein was operating as some kind of information hub collecting secrets from politicians, using women to gain access and potentially compromise them, and then perhaps passing that information on, then this stops being just a sex scandal. It becomes an espionage scandal.
It's a real-life house of cards. And the source material also discloses that Mandelson didn't just leak to Epstein, he actively tried to protect him.
Yes. He allegedly tried to suppress a media investigation, specifically a probe by the Mail on Sunday newspaper into the Andrew Epstein friendship. Mandelson allegedly used his immense influence to try and kill the story before it was published.
So he was actively protecting the relationship. He was running interference.
That's the allegation. He was acting as a shield for a convicted pedophile in order to protect a prince and perhaps to protect himself.
It's just a house of cards, isn't it? Which brings us to the final part of this, the political consequences happening right now. Because this isn't just about Mandelson's past actions. It is having a direct, toxic effect on the current British government.
It is actively destabilizing the Labour Party as we speak. The fallout from these revelations is so poisonous that senior Labour MPs are reportedly suggesting that the current leader, Sir Keir Starmer, should step aside.
Step aside. He's the leader of the opposition. Why does a dinner from 2010 hurt him in 2026?
because Mandelson isn't just a historical figure. He had been brought back into the fold. He was advising the current leadership. There were serious talks about him becoming the next ambassador to the United States.
So the link is current.
It's very current. And so now they're talking about needing a caretaker prime minister to lead the party until they can have a summer leadership contest. That is how damaging this association has become. The logic is, if the current leadership is seen as being too entangled with the toxic legacy of Mandelson, then the contamination spreads to them too.
And it's not just the leader. It's hitting his senior staff as well.
Yes, Morgan McSweeney, Starmer's chief of staff. The sources say he's on the brink of quitting. Some within the party are blaming him for forcing the idea of appointing Mandelson as ambassador. It's a circular firing squad. Everyone is trying to distance themselves from the blast radius.
And Sir Chris Wormald, the cabinet secretary.
He's also facing calls to resign. Look, these are the people who run the actual machinery of government, the chief of staff, the cabinet secretary, and they are all wobbling because of the revelations in these files.
It is truly incredible how one dinner, one single toxic relationship, can send these shockwaves more than a decade later and threaten to topple an entire government.
It just shows the inherent fragility of these institutions when they are built on compromised foundations. If the foundation is rotten, no matter how grand the house looks, it will eventually start to crack.
And in the middle of all this chaos, we have the other central figure, Ghislaine Maxwell. She's in prison now, of course. But the source mentions she is scheduled to testify before the U.S. Congress via video link.
That's right. But I would tell you, don't hold your breath for some big confession. The universal expectation is that she will plead the Fifth Amendment. She will stay silent to avoid incriminating herself any further. She knows that anything she says can and will be used to extend her prison sentence. Her silence is her only remaining weapon.
So the silence continues from the key players, but the documents, the files themselves, are finally doing the talking.
Exactly. The paper trail is screaming.
So let's try and wrap this up. We have covered a huge amount of ground today. We've gone from a cute Romanian model being added to a private palace dinner list, all the way to police raids on a lord's home and a former prime minister crying betrayal.
It's an incredible web, isn't it? You have the prince seemingly just seeking fun and completely ignoring the grim reality of his friend's crimes. You have the politician allegedly trading state secrets and protection. You have the financier, the spider at the center of it all, pulling the strings, grooming the women, and infiltrating the very heart of the establishment.
And you have the model.
And you have the model. The human currency in this entire sordid transaction. Used, objectified, and then, as we saw in the emails, threatened when she stepped out of line.
The contrast is what sticks with me the most. The email the morning after says, "Great fun." But the reality behind that fun was grooming, potential treason, and systemic misconduct.
It was fun for them because they operated under the assumption that they were completely untouchable. They believed the ancient walls of the palace and the hallowed halls of government were thick enough to hide the truth forever. They didn't see their victims as people, they saw them as amenities.
But the walls have ears, or at least they have email servers that keep backups.
Indeed they do.
There's still so many unanswered questions, though.
Oh, many. The biggest one for me is, what exactly happened inside the palace that night? The documents give us the setup and they give us the aftermath. But there's a gap. We don't know what was said around that dinner table. And where are the results of the internal palace investigations? If visitor logs exist, the public has a right to see them. The silence from the institution itself is deafening.
I want to leave you, our listener, with one final thought. It's something we touched on earlier, but I really want you to sit with it for a moment.
Go on.
Epstein wrote to that young woman, "No man looks at your clothes, they see through them." I want you to really think about that worldview. It's a kind of X-ray vision, but it's a malicious one. It's a worldview that reduces a human being to nothing more than meat. Now consider this. The people running the country, the politicians, the royals, the ultimate power brokers, they were best friends with the man who saw the world that way. They welcomed him into their most sacred spaces. They shared their secrets with him. They had great fun with him. So the question you have to ask yourself is, what does it say about their worldview if they were so comfortable, so enthusiastic about embracing his?
That is the truly terrifying question, isn't it? Did they just tolerate his worldview? Or on some level, did they share it?
That is something we might never know for sure. But the files give us a glimpse behind the curtain that is impossible to unsee. That's all we have time for on this deep dive into the palace files. Stay curious, stay critical, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Goodbye for now.